Okay, welcome. When I was asked actually if I could speak at the growth summit for product management, I thought about what can I contribute to that, okay? And the first thing I did is actually I started to research and look around what is out there in terms of why is growth so important, okay? And when you look at what you can find actually, there's a pretty interesting study from McKinsey out there. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's from 2014 and it followed about 3,000 software companies and how they were growing and how far they got. And the title of it was Grow Fast or Die Slow. And I think that says is really all why growth is so important, for software companies at least, right? When you see from those 3,000 companies here, about 800 made it to over 100 million. Okay, that's, what is that, like 30-something%? Made it to 100 million. Out of the 3,000, only 96 made it to $1 billion in revenue. And then it's gonna get like 17 out of those only made it over 4 billion. So what this study more or less indicates is why growth is so important. And actually it says more than that. It says actually fast growth is really key to this. Otherwise the company is gonna die slow. And by the way, for the dying slow, I will add something with the following slides because dying slow cannot be that bad either, okay? So if you're dying in 15 years, and I've never planned a job for more than 5 years or whatever, so you can still have a really good job in one of these companies. The reason why I'm here and the reason, I guess, why I was invited is because I work for the #1 company up here on this chart. I work for UiPath, which is one of the fastest growing software companies in this report, at least from Deloitte. UiPath is got famous with robotic process automation, which is a market that incredibly took off in 2017. Okay, I will speak more about the company in one of the later slides, but that's probably the reason why I'm here. The reason what I want to tell you, and I'm not talking about tools, I'm not talking about methods and whatever, but I try to share some of my experience that I have from the last 15 years of leading product management, and something that I wish somebody had done with me when I was at this stage maybe. Let me start with my first role that I took for VP of product management, okay? I was really naive when I got into this role. I was a CRM company, and we were sitting together, the leadership team, every Monday morning. We talked about opportunities, and there were 2 or 3 large opportunities, 1 million, 2 million revenue. The CEO stressed the fact that we need to do everything to support these opportunities. We did actually, we changed roadmaps, we promised features, we did everything we could do, okay? The CEO would look over to the sales guy, and ask the sales guy, what do you think are the chances that they come? And the sales guy would say like, well, 1 for sure, maybe 2, but 1 for sure. The quarter ended, none of them came, okay? We changed the entire roadmap, we changed features, everything. Guess what? Monday comes, we have the leadership meeting again, we're sitting in the room, all the same people, highly educated, smart people, okay? There's 2 or 3 large deals in the pipeline, we talk about them, we changed the roadmap, we changed the features. CEO asked the sales guy, what do you think? 1, maybe 2, but 1 for sure. And again, it didn't come. That's why I chose this picture. I don't know if you know the movie, actually, it's Groundhog's Day. Bill Murray in this movie wakes up every single day and runs through the same thing over and over and over again. And I felt in this scenario like this. And I asked the question, like, am I the only one who sees the pattern here, right? For me, what happened is I drifted off in literature, actually. I started to read books like How Smart People Can Make Stupid Decisions. I got into statistics like the Black Swan or Daniel Kahneman, behavioral economics, just to understand why do people make the wrong decisions in this context. Now, when I started in product management, I had sort of a chart like this, which represented the skills that you need as a product manager, okay? And when you look on the left-hand side, you see all the tools that are actually necessary and needed for a product manager to do the business, right? You see the product life cycle, you see the counter model, you see the Boston Square metrics, you see roadmaps where you participate to make sure your products come out with the right features, and then you have some data-driven analytics that you see how your users are actually using your products. As I moved more and more into the management roles, it became obvious actually that the organizational skills were more important for me, okay? So product management is actually a pretty cool place to be in a software company because it's at the heart of the business. You're deciding what goes into the product, but on the other hand, everyone has a good idea and everyone has an opinion, and I'm sure you know this. So when I use roadmaps now as a head of product management, I use them more to coordinate the organization, to align marketing and all the sales and everything with the releases that we are planning to do. When I use usage statistics, I use them to show the investor that we are actually investing in the right features so that they can trust us more or less that we know what we're doing, right? And there's much more. But what is interesting is actually when you look at this from a career perspective, you probably shift to the right. But if you look at it from a growth perspective, and especially the speed and growth of a company, it also shifts to the right. So the faster a company is growing, the more you will need the skills on the right-hand side, the less you will need the skills on the left-hand side. In every company that I worked for, somebody came to me and more or less said, we are inside the tornado. I don't know, have you heard that statement? Does everybody know what it means, Geoffrey Moore, crossing the chasm inside the tornado? So none of these companies that I worked for at this time were in a tornado. Still, people were convinced or obsessed that they are in a tornado. That means they were obsessed with the idea of growing in an insane speed or something, right? Now, oh, this one is, okay. So the animation killed a little bit here. So what I did is actually I broke down the companies by growth in terms of revenue growth and organizational growth. If you're not growing in revenue and not growing in people, then I would call you a walking dead. Okay, this is what McKinsey talks about in dying slow. It can take 15 years, but you know, still you're dying. It's not that much fun. If you're growing in revenue, but you're not really growing in people, or you're only moderately growing, then I would call you a successful business. Okay, these upper left companies are actually quite interesting. Why are they interesting? Because for us as a product manager, these are the companies where you can actually really practice product management. That means they have probably more stable processes, they have defined structures, and you need strong PM skills for that. You can do data-driven analytics, you can do decision making, you can use all these tools that you actually want to use as a product manager. The only downside on the left-hand side is actually that you will also find typically some established conflicts. If a company grows over 10 or 15 years, there are some established conflicts either between engineering, product management, sales, marketing, or some sort of conflicts in there. If you focus on the right-hand side, this is where growth happens, like really massive growth. Then there's two flavors to it. There's no revenue, which means what we're smoking, but that typically is a company that is in the hype area. This is the next big thing, right? VCs go in, they pour money into it, companies get founded and explode and everything, but they might never make it into like a real business. And on the top, you see the tornado companies. These are the companies that are growing massively, okay? So I give you an example. UiPath grew in the last 3 years from about 350 employees to 3,500 employees. From a small, I don't know, below 100 million company to an now at least evaluated 7.7 billion company, okay? On this side, you find less processes. The people don't have the time to establish processes. And if you set up a process, it takes half a year to establish the process. In that year, the company doubled or changed so much that the process might not even make sense anymore. So don't hope that you find solid processes there. You find less structures, okay? it's growing. Everything is growing. In UiPath, for example, there was a time when half the population or the employees was with UiPath for less than half a year. Can you imagine? Nobody knew nobody at this point. So what you have in this organization is a lot of informal structures. If you want to get stuff done, you need to know people. You need to know who can make something happen in the organization. And you need what I call the fast PM skills, because you don't get data, okay? I'll give you an example. In my previous company, we implemented user data that the tool would report user data back to us. It was an on-premise solution. It took us a year to implement this. And then it takes half a year until the customer will install this version, and then you need a half a year worth of data before you can make decent decisions with it. I'm talking about a total of 2 years, okay? That would never happen in a Tornado company. You don't have 2 years. In 2 years, the company is either gone, or maybe one of the big ones, or you don't recognize it anymore. So one thing I think that is really important here is that tornadoes happen. Nobody can create a tornado, okay? And if somebody tells you that this company is in a tornado, then it's not, because you will know when you're in a tornado. I think Jeffrey Moore in the book said something like in a tornado, you couldn't see a customer even if you would step on one. It's that kind of crazy growth that you would expect in a tornado. But there's also some downsides to that. So if you want to be in a company that is in a tornado, tornadoes overshoot. It's the sheer force, the speed that they have, that at some point, if you hire 1,000 or 1,500 people a year, you will overshoot for sure. And in this case, when you overshoot in an organization like this, you need to act really quick. And this is what happened, for example, this year also at UiPath. It overshot by over 500 employees. And at the point when everyone realized what the burn rate was and that it was not sustainable, they had to lay off 500 employees, okay? So that's the ugly side of a tornado if you're inside it. The example that I like to use when I look at growth in organizations, and I think the biggest impact with growth is the organization. It's not the pure revenue side. I mean, revenue is nice, right? But with growing the organization, you get into all these effects that you actually experience. I like to look at it like an oil company. Oil company, the first people who start an oil company, at least in the good old days, are the people that can sniff oil. They walk through the desert, there's oil. And then they get the drillers. Drillers are crazy guys, right? They drill because they like the challenge. They like the rush. And once the oil is shooting out of the well, you bring in the pumpers, the refiners, and after you have your products, you kind of like distribute it and market it. So these different stages, if you look at this, the sniffers and the drillers are the founders, typically, that you find. The pumper and refiner, this is where I see more the architects and the product managers. They are creating products, offerings. And the distributors are more like the product marketers and the salespeople. So what is important, though, is that very often, when you look at these different stages, the people from the previous phase are not the right people for the next phase, okay? So the driller and the sniffer, they will not be happy in a pumper refiner environment. And when companies grow really fast, they will still be there. And I'm 100% sure that you have been in an organization where you have heard your colleagues talk. It's not the same anymore, you know? It used to be such a cool company, we had so much fun, and this and this and this and this. And these are typical signs that actually there's generations almost of people growing in this organization, and they might not be in the right place anymore, okay? Some, of course, make the transition, but it's something to think about. The one person that I would highlight in this case, and so this is taken from a Harvard Business Review study, which was written in 1993. So quite old, but they studied the small business growth in 5 stages and followed certain companies. The one focus they had was on the founder, okay? So this more or less marks the business and the founder. In the beginning, the business and the founder is one. The founder is also, in technical companies, always the first product manager, right? And then as the company grows, they need structures, they need managers, At some size, they will bring product managers in and all this good stuff. In this study, there's from growth stage number 3 to the next one, it depends on the founder, how far the founder can detach from the company and allow other people to manage the business. The business can even fall back into almost bankruptcy if this doesn't happen in the study. Now, Simon Sinek mentioned it in this under delegation, where he says, more or less, can the founder let go? Is the founder capable of letting go and bringing in other people who will do that work? Will he be okay if people will do it differently or if people do mistakes? Because they are not as committed maybe as the founder was, but those are the challenges of this problem. Now then I searched and looked for what type of founders can you find. I found like 15 different papers about 7 types of entrepreneurs, the 6 types of founders, and whatever. So I came up with my own list, okay? Because I believe there's really just 3 types of founders in most of the companies. The first one is the serial entrepreneur. This guy is crazy about starting businesses. He creates a business, he takes it to a level where he can either fund it or maybe sell it to a private equity or something, and then he just walks away happily smiling, okay? He starts the next business because that's what he wants to do. That's the serial entrepreneur. In the middle, you find what I call the can't let go founder. Typical symptom is when you are in a software company, for example, you go in and the CTO is the founder, CPO, CSO, still pulling the strings behind the scenes. Very strong personality, but not the CEO. That's really important. In that case, the person didn't want to be or couldn't be the CEO, but still pulling the strings within the organization. And that can cause some really dramatic effects and tension between the management teams. The only way how a founder can be the CEO is when you have a charismatic founder. And there's only a handful of them, right? I put a picture up there from this fine gentleman. I don't know if you recognize him. This gentleman is called Daniel Dines. He's the founder of UiPath, actually. He started UiPath in Bucharest about 15 years ago or 13 years ago. He's one of the most humble persons, by the way, when you meet him. The guy is a billionaire, more or less. But he's the nicest and most humble person, and he's very charismatic when he speaks in public. So then when I looked at the talk, I thought I picked the companies I worked for, and I labeled them. I call one the good, one the bad, and one the ugly. And then I went through it and thought about it, and actually, it's not possible. Every company has something good, something bad, and something really ugly. So I kind of switched it, and what you will see is now I actually look at these companies real quick and call out what was the good, the bad, and the ugly of that, okay? This was my first company. That was the one with Groundhog's Day. Update CRM is a CRM company that was founded in 1988. Actually, 5 years before Siebel Systems was founded. I don't know if you're familiar. There's young faces in here, but some may know Siebel Systems. Siebel Systems was the company that really created CRM as a system, okay? So this company was founded 5 years earlier, had some really good early successes. The tool was very popular. They got funding, and they actually went public. And the small princess, and they blew it, okay? For whatever they did, they never succeeded. They never grew bigger than 34 million in revenue. Siebel Systems was at the peak 1.7 billion in revenue. I think that was 2005 or so. Then the company turned into what I call the walking dead. The company didn't grow anymore. This is the time when we still have perpetual licenses mostly. So the maintenance revenues of this company was 72%. There's 10% services and there's almost no new license revenue. This means this company is going down. Okay, when I joined the company, I was naive. I didn't ask any of these questions. And within 3 months, I realized I'm sitting on a dead horse. I mean, this is not going to end well, right? The good news is they got acquired by a private equity firm. So there's two kinds of private equity firm. There's the growth equity and there's the other equity. The other equity strips down a company and lets them bleed to death slowly. But that can take 10, 15 years and still a business model, okay? It's not as much fun, but it's still a viable place to work, and still they need product managers and everything. The worst part, the ugly, was the leadership clash. The founder was a CTO, smart guy, quite calm. He built engineering like a fortress. You couldn't work with that, more or less. And he tried to steer the company from the engineering side. And he clashed with the CEO, and there was a lot of tension and everything. And in my understanding, this was the reason why the company went down in first place. The second company I want to highlight here is a company called Tricentis. It's actually in the automated software quality space. The company was founded in 2007 and had some periods of minor growth. If you looked at the company at this time, you would have called them a walking dead. What happened to them was actually that they got strong PE funding, and they got 170 million roughly in funding, and that turned the company around. It started to grow, and it started to become very, very successful. Now, when you look at like Gartner, this is like the leader in the Magic Quadrant, for example, right? It's uncommon because it's a late bloomer, and it had layoffs, and it was almost a walking dead. That was the bad thing. The ugly thing in this company was that there were two things that happened. It was merged with another portfolio company of the investor, and that caused a major culture clash in the organization. So what happened was a company from Atlanta was merged with a company from Vienna, Austria. Okay, that didn't go well. And the management handled, I think, that really poorly as well. So they let the tension grow and happen. The founder was an extremely smart person, but he was chief strategy officer, and he wanted to be probably CEO, but he didn't. And he pulled the strings in the background, so that made it really hard to do your job there. So those were the disadvantages. If I was a new product manager and I would want to learn how to do product management from a process perspective, from all the tool perspectives and everything, I would join probably Tricentis. It was successful, it was growing, and you could use all the tools that you wanted to use, okay? The last one is UiPath. I mentioned it was founded in 2005. It was kind of like not really on the radar, but then what happened was this company was at the right time, at the right place, with the right technology. In 2017, robotic process automation uses the same technology like the company before, Tricentis, and it took off like crazy. It raised $1 billion in funding over 3 rounds, and it's now evaluated at 7.7 billion in value, okay? So this is the good. The bad, you are inside a tornado. This is a true tornado, okay? You meet people and they're here for 3 months, you feel like you're a legend because you are here for 8 months. I mean, it's crazy, okay? But the ugly thing is that this growth is partially out of control. You have a ton of initiatives going on. You have, overhired, which was corrected by layoffs, and you have a lot of informal structures, okay? If I was early in my career, this would not be the place where I would like to learn product management, to be honest. There's no data. I mean, there is data, but the data is changing so quick that you can barely make your chart, and it's outdated. So I would actually start in another company, and then maybe jump into one of these, because it's a great experience to see that. So the last slide, more or less, here is an ace that you can keep. I don't know, the audience looks fairly young. Kenny Rogers, The Gambler, is a American country song. And I want to give you an ace that you might be able to use in your next interview, next job choice, okay? Choose the right company, the growth type company that you want to work in, okay? If you want to use your tools, if you want to learn the skills, and if you want to be process-focused, data-driven and everything, I think a moderate growth company is probably perfect. If you jump into a NATO, you will not use those tools, okay? You will be like crunching and doing whatever you can. There's two things that I always ask when I take on a new role is ask about transparency and about structures. Transparency, from my experience, is the biggest red flag that I found in organizations. If the backlog is not open, or if engineering has their own backlog, or if they use different tools, whatever, name it, red flag goes up, okay? This is something you have to be careful about. Structures, ownership, responsibility, the same thing. And ask about the founder. My recommendation is when you're in an interview, ask who the founder, or do some research about the founder. Maybe you can even get an interview with him, okay? And ask him what his plans are, what he's, what type of person he is. Because the worst thing that can happen is that you're somewhere in a Walking Dead company where there's zero transparency because engineering put a fortress around them and the founder is an absolute can't let go. In that case, I will keep it with Kenny Rogers. You gotta know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. Thank you, guys. Thank you. So we've got some questions here. What's the number one must-have skill of PMs? Well, that's a really good question. I mean, you saw the slide, right? You saw the functional skills and you saw the organizational skills. I think the functional skills are to understand what delights a customer. So when I was in my organization, I always used the Kano model. I don't know, is anyone familiar with Kano? Yeah, okay. Oh, that's surprising. Kano put this model up where he has must-have features. If you don't have them, you should not be in the business. You don't make anyone happy, but they will be angry when you don't have them. Then he said there's performance features. Performance features are the ones that actually create more value for the customers. And then there's the delighters. Delighters are things that you remember after you saw a demo. When you walk out and say, like, wow, that was a really cool feature, right? And so I think every product needs to have the right set, the right combination of these three components. You have to have the must-haves, you need performance, but you also want to have delighters. So I think that will be, for me, one of the most important skills to get the right mix that you have. On the soft side, or on the organizational skills, I think it's all about navigating organizations. You have to learn and you have to be able to deal with different personalities, to pick the right battles, to make the right deals, and to make the right decisions. Okay. How closely should founder be involved in the product development? Well, you saw the chart with the bubbles, right? At some point of the company, when it's, let's say you have a 200 people company, or you have a product management, you have a VP of product management, the owner should not be involved in product development anymore, okay? He needs to trust the people that are doing their job. Of course, that the person will always be involved and you will have to review with him and give him feedback and everything. But as soon as that person goes in and changes the roadmap for whatever gut feeling, then you have a problem. Then you have a can't let go founder. How closely should okay, what is that? What role do you see founders taking on if they do separate themselves from the business? I would say mountaineers or sailboat riders or, happy people. No, it's more like an advisor role, right? You're attached to the company and they are smart people. Okay, they will always have a special role in the company. But the idea is take them out of the operational roles. Okay, which one? How much intuition versus data analysis to create your products? It depends. I mean, if you have the data, I would use any data I can, okay? In Tricentis, it took us 2 years to get the usage data because it was an on-premise product. If you're in a software as a service business, you might have the data readily available. In UiPath, it's even worse, I would say, because it's moving so fast that we double the customers every year. Okay, that I get customer data and what they're using. I really have to go and talk to them. So one thing I learned is when you do not have large amounts of data, I would do small amounts of targeted interviews. Okay, I would do a handful or maybe 10 interviews with customers where you have 3 open questions. You ask about the topics, and at the end, the last question I usually ask is, imagine you meet a genie in a bottle and you have 3 wishes. What would those 3 wishes be? And with those interviews, when you read them afterwards, you will find out you get a really good impression of what these customers need. Is there anything else? How are we doing with time? 2 minutes, okay. How should a VP of product behave when the company grows at a very fast rate, and what should he do to keep up? Okay, what should a VP do when a company grows really fast? You have to be involved. You have to be in the leadership board, right? The product, or I would even say the CPO role. What's the difference between a VP and the CPO role? If you think about it, you need to be part of the strategy, right? Because product needs to deliver on the strategy that the company needs. You cannot build a product in isolation. If the CEO wants to go after existing customer and not after a new customer, you need to support the strategy with your product. So what I would recommend is be closely connected with the leadership team to know how you can support the strategy. Any other question? How do you manage support those informal structures to maintain direction? I think the informal structures are difficult, especially when you enter the company new. It's hard for you to actually find out. You have to ask people, and then people tell people that they've heard, and you probably have seen this in some organizations, right? The informal structures, but you have to learn them. There's no way around this, and you need to understand who the people are that actually make decisions, who the people are that walk into the CEO office and kill a project or create a project, and you need to know how to deal with them and how to navigate them. I think that's it. We had the last question already. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.